Welcome everyone to the dance floor where life lessons are learned through the art of dance. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and today my special guest is Matt Richey, an exciting dancer from California. I was so inspired by your Instagram page with your swing dance videos and dance walks. Welcome, Matt, to the dance floor.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. I've just admired your Instagram page for like a long time now. So I've been following your walks and your swing dance moves and your vintage clothing that I'm really super jealous about. But tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you became a dancer.
Oh gosh, the long story or the short story, that's always what I go through. But I think I was like a born dancer. There's video clips of me from 6 months old to a year old, and I would like watch my sister's ballet recitals and memorize it. And I was like barely walking, and I would come home and I would do her choreography. So I was definitely a born dancer.
That's awesome. And so I guess from that time, did you study dance as a young child? Did you start to go to that studio where your sister was?
So they tried to get me in classes, but I was so nervous, and the fear definitely kept me away. And they tried over and over and over again. It wasn't until I was 11, it took a bet with my sisters, as well as bribery from my parents, as well as a best friend taking it with me, that got me into my first class.
Wow. And so I take it that was more of like traditional technique classes like ballet or jazz?
No, actually, it was a Lindy Hop class. That was my first class I ever took. And they tried to get me in hip hop. They tried to get me in jazz and ballet. And I think I wanted to do it, but the fear of like, but I don't want to be told what to do, and I'm expressing myself. And I was just so nervous that I waited. But we saw a community show, and there was a couple in the performance that ran a teen swing group called Razzmatazz, and I was like, what was that? I want to do that. I want to do what they just did.
Oh, wow. That's all it takes, isn't it? That one little spark, and then you're like, I'm in. I'm hooked. I want to do more of that. I started dancing at the age of 4, but my ethnic background is Italian. All of my grandparents were Italian. So they came to this country with music and dance kind of coursing through their veins. So all of my family actually can trace back over 500 years, and we're all artists of some sort. Music, dance, painting, pottery, you name it. And we're all have that creativity in us. So I think it was a little bit of DNA for me, but my mom took me to a dance studio. And then I took everything, anything that I could absorb that was movement. I really did. And so I'm with you. It just took 1 or 2 shows, watching on television or something like that. And then I was hooked too.
Right. After I took that class, then I was so hungry for it. I've taken everything I could possibly since then, Yeah. But it just took that one first class. And I come from a long line of doctors and professionals and business people. And yet my sisters and my brother's not a dancer, but he's still like fairly creative. But my sisters and I were like all super creative, all dancing, all, doing all that stuff growing up. That was our thing. So it just like hit our generation, and we got
That's cool.
We got the
That's all it takes. And now you're spreading it through your Instagram page. Like I said, I'm super jealous of the costumes or clothing, the vintage clothing that you're wearing. Tell us a little bit about your walks, your daily walks. How did that start?
Oh gosh. So obviously, a huge part of my life is partner dancing. Since I started with a partner dance, I still partner dance full-time. But with the pandemic going on and the quarantine, I haven't had options really.
Right, same here. Same here with folk dance. We have a partner right now.
Exactly. And I was trying to find ways to like keep active, and I definitely hit a little bit of a slump where I just lost all motivation for everything for like a week, but I think a lot of people did in the beginning.
True.
And then I started going on a walk every day, and I would put on headphones for that walk, and it was so funny because I would barely make it a couple blocks and my walks turned into a dance. And like people would wave driving by or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, oops, did I just dance out loud? Yes, I was.
Awesome.
And then I kind of came home one day and I was talking to my roommate and I was like, would you film me? Like, it would be kind of fun. We'll do like a little musical, me walking out of my door.
I teach a lot of musical theater dance, and I do a lot of choreography for the local high schools and colleges in this area. And I do all of their musical theater numbers. So as soon as you came out with some of those moves, I was like, oh my gosh, I would watch this all day. I just wanted more of it. And so I was glad that you kept going each day with a different song and a different kind of dance and stuff. That just was really cool. So tell us, where do you get your clothes? Because they're all vintage, yes?
Yeah, a lot of my clothes are vintage. This was something that I started when I was like 18 probably. So about 10 years ago. I have always loved old movies, and this is also part of the dance journey, is anytime I go over to my grandparents' house, the only child acceptable television they had were Shirley Temple movies, because my grandmother was a big Shirley Temple fan.
My mom was too.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Shirley.
So I've seen them all many times, and I think that also influenced not just the love of dance, but the love of that style of music and the clothing. And so once I did start dancing, I was like, I want to dress like that. I want to be like that. I want to portray the class and elegance that I saw on the screen. And so you bet I did. I started collecting. I went to thrift stores in the beginning, and then I found vintage stores, and then I started going to flea markets, and now I have a collection.
If you're like me, if somebody knows that that's what you're always on the move for or searching for, you'll get phone calls from people saying, hey, I picked up this vest. Can I just drop this off to you?
Yep, and people send me links to eBay all the time, or links to Etsy. They're like, oh, I saw this, and I thought of you immediately. It's so dapper. And I was like, I love this. I love that this is my thing.
Yeah, and you know what? It gets the community involved in a different way, in a different aspect, and I think it pulls other people into the dance community of how, it can be addicting, like once you start moving and you just find that flair that you are attracted to, and you just find your niche. I love that.
So true.
I love that people are sending you links. I would too. I wish I could do some vintage shopping right now. That's one thing that I kind of miss, because I do that for finding some costumes for the theater or for my own dance company. Sometimes we vintage shop because you can't find certain things anymore, or they just don't make them.
That's my hobby, so I'm super deprived. Also, antique shopping. My whole house is all 1950s. So.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I have a lot of things from my grandparents and my parents, since they've all passed away now. I've kept some this and that's from their time frame, and so I'm with you. Vintage, antiques.
Absolutely timeless.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of cool to walk into those places because everything has a story. Everyone has a story, and everything has a story.
So true.
And so
to give it a second life.
Yeah, and to give it a new chapter to their story or to their book. I love that. Well, Matt, I've never been to California, so I'm hoping, like I said earlier, I'm hoping that I can go maybe next year if we're traveling a little more, maybe next year, hopefully, if things calm down. I'd love to come out to California. So tell me a little bit about your area. Is it a big dance community?
Oh, yes. So Orange County has, honestly, I feel like I'm in the center of all the fun. I could drive an hour in any direction and have access to amazing dancers or performers or artists in San Diego and LA and Riverside and just any direction. I have all these options. Not to mention Orange County itself has so many big studios for all types of dance. I mean, I work at Atomic Ballroom part-time, so that's obviously a huge venue in Orange County, and it's well known all throughout the world for primarily having Lindy Hop and West Coast Swing on their main floor, but they also have tango and ballroom and salsa and just about everything you can think of.
That's awesome, and it's all partner work or ballroom-esque.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and we also have Millennium, which is the Millennium OC, which is, everyone sees those videos on YouTube and Instagram, and they're like, oh, I want to go there. I'm like, I live by there. So it's
there's one near me. There's one Millennium Complex in Pittsburgh. So
oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, we have the East Coast version. So there's some big name artists that come in, and I'm hoping to teach there every once in a while, like maybe for a workshop or something soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the people that work there, they're like-minded creatives. So I go there all the time, honestly. When the world is open, I go almost every Monday, and I just go like, what's happening? Who's here? What can I do?
Yeah, what
And
can I learn?
Yeah. And every
That's
time
awesome.
they're like, well, today you can do jazz funk. Or sometimes they'll be like, today it's heels with David Slaney. And I'm like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah. I think that's what happens. We as dancers, we're like, if it's moving, I'm in. I don't care
Yep.
what we're doing, what we're dancing to. Nope. Love it.
It's
Want to
great
learn it all.
that maybe I would have not chosen for myself. It's fun to have exposure.
Yeah, and I think it really pumps up your vocabulary of movement, like what you can pull into your routines and what other things you can be influenced by. Did you ever compete with your Lindy Hop or swing dance, or is it just primarily just study?
Yeah, so I competed in my first contest ever in 2009, and I placed at the National Jitterbug Championship that year, which was super exciting. And now I'm the current title holder for the highest level at the National Jitterbug Championship. So,
woohoo! That's awesome.
I'm also in the California Swing Dance Hall of Fame.
Cool.
And have been competing internationally and nationally since then, just all scattered in between.
So what is the best advice maybe you can give to a dancer who maybe wants to start dancing or maybe wants to start competing? Like what can we tell them that could really help them?
Two big things that I always tell all my students. One is a quote, just dance, it'll be okay, da-da-do-do. Lady Gaga said it best.
That's right.
If you dance your dance, you will always set yourself up for success. If you try to dance someone else's dance and try to please somebody else, it's never going to fit you the same way.
That's true.
So just dance. Just remember to do your dance. Trust your body and your vessel.
Yeah, I always tell dancers to be truthful with their movement. And like you're saying, be you, don't be anyone else. And I think a lot of new dancers get caught up, but I want to be like so-and-so from the video.
Exactly. They'll have an idol or an icon and they want to emulate, which it's great to take those inspirations, but you have to trust your own vessel. This is your body. It will know what to do in that moment.
And no one else is like you. So it's already going to stand out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I say that a lot in musical theater. They'll perform a piece or whatever, working on choreography, and I'll stop them in the middle of it if it's just not working and say, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I'm not believing it. Let's try it again. So those are good advice I think that we can give dancers. What about competing? Like if you're competing, what's something we can try or remember?
Competing is a whole other beast in a lot of ways, but I think the best advice I could give is breath. Breathe. A lot of times, if I ever felt nervous or any sort of jitters, the second I started some controlled breathing, it would go away.
Wow.
Almost immediately. Now I don't have any nerves at all. When I compete, I'm never nervous in front of a crowd. And with that said, think about breath control while you're competing, know? And sometimes you even have to think about it ahead of time and train yourself. Okay, this is an inhale moment. This is an exhale moment, but that'll help you control your breath. And that just, the nerves will melt away and you're going to have a fuller performance in that competition.
I have a big background in Pilates and yoga. I was trained in that as well and certified. And so I always tell dancers to breathe. And sometimes I'll literally say, here's where you inhale.
Yeah.
Exhale on that batma or whatever it is,
Exactly.
and I move it into my ballet bar. I've been doing a lot of breath reminders, for teaching ballet bar.
Breathing makes such a big difference. And when you're competing, a lot of times our brain or mind is focused on something. Look up, smile, and then we lose our breath. And that's so problematic. If you're competing, you want to make sure that you're breathing and then everything else kind of falls into place. I
agree. So a lot of times I ask dancers, what's in their dance bag? What's their go-to things that help them survive? For me, and this is not a commercial for them, but BioFreeze is my new best friend. Okay. So any kind of like hot rub and that sort of thing, like sometimes if you're really sore after an event, or if I'm coming off a tour. So what's your go-to bag? Like what do you have?
My go-to, for like post competitions or anything really strenuous with a lot of aerials or a big performance, like Epsom salt, I travel with it because I can soak. But my trick, it's so funny because I have a reputation for this now, and so do my dance partners, is if I know it's going to be extremely physical, like a fast dancing competition or like a throwdown or a battle that's going to last a long time, several rounds, I take a teaspoon of honey before I go out.
Wow.
Because it coats my throat and it adds a little moisture to my mouth, and the sugars kind of get everything going so that I don't have a dry throat or mouth while performing.
That's a really great tip.
And it has saved me so many times. I don't feel out of breath at the end of contests anymore because I'm lubricating my mouth beforehand in a little dose of honey. And it has changed my competitions, my performances. Teaspoon, and we all do it together now.
I am definitely going to try that for my next performance.
Sure.
My go-to is also chapstick. We perform at a lot of outdoor festivals here in the East Coast, and during the summer it's hot. I'm sure it's not as hot as California perhaps, but today's like 92 degrees, which is pretty hot to perform outside. So chapstick is my new best friend. And of course sunscreen and that sort of thing. I always pack that for the dancers, sunscreen and things like that for sure. I love the Epsom salt. Yeah, that's also a must do after shows.
Yeah, especially if you're performing outside. If you're not on a good floor, you have to respect your body and kind of soak it. Make sure you're treating yourself afterwards. Otherwise, you're going to regret it.
And can we just talk about dance floors for a second? Because I think the outside world, not the dance community, but the outside world that plans events or festivals and things like that, I don't think they realize that dancers need a proper floor to perform on.
Oh, yes. And you bet I've had every circumstance at this point. I show up for a gig and they're like, oh, I thought this was a good floor. And I'm like, it's carpet. It's, painted plywood, which is super, super difficult on your legs over time, especially like your joints, your ankles, your knees. I always say knees are very expensive. You don't want to mess with those.
That's right. The spine, I'd like to keep all of my vertebrae. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the best for a lot of like performance dancing practices is a spring-bound floor, anything that has a little bit of cushion so that you're not smacking those joints every time you land on a jump or every time you try to turn, and something that doesn't have too much grip. Not to say you can't make cement work, it's just not so pleasant.
My company showed up to do a performance at a festival, and I won't say where exactly, let's just say, and the floor was a dance floor like for a wedding reception, okay? Those put together wooden doodahs.
Tied together.
Yeah.
Squares.
However, the middle of the floor was like a little bit peaked, like where it got wet or warped, and it peaked up like this. So the middle of the floor was sort of like a springboard. So let's just say we just made sure that we circled around it rather than on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We also bring duct tape and some other tools, I'll say, with us on tour, because you never know when you have to.
On the bottom of the shoes.
Oh my gosh, hairspray on the bottom of the shoes for non-slip. It's a whole different world backstage, isn't it?
It really is. It's a bunch of make-do. Gosh, not too long ago, this was probably one of my last shows before everything closed down. We were performing on a stage and we didn't really get a full tech. We just did, like tips and tops, just kind of like the beginning and the end. Mm-hmm. And as we like walk off, after we did like that 2-second little walkthrough, they were like, oh, you see that spot in the middle of the floor? You see that right there? I was like, yeah. They're like, don't step on that. You'll fall through it.
Right.
Thank you for telling me now that it's too late to do anything about it.
I love it as we as dancers are like, sure, no problem. We'll just deal with it.
I will dance around it.
I will dance around it, as we did too. We made our folk dance circle right around the hole. Yeah. I recently talked to one of my other friends, and we we were saying that dancers or artists, musicians, we're probably the best people to hire because we're very good at improvising the situation. If something arises, for some reason, we're just trained to take care of it and not stress. Just like you said, take a breath. We'll figure it out.
Don't just go on mentality. Like being in so many performances, you have two options. You can stress and nothing will change, or you can take action and you make it work.
Exactly. And I think that's something that I always talk about here on the dance floor is what is the life lesson you learn maybe by doing your art? So what's some life lesson that you've maybe learned through doing your art of dance?
Well, I mean, honestly, one of the best life lessons is what I was just saying. There's no use worrying or adding stress because that's going to just make problems worse. Instead, keep calm and carry on, right? Like you have to take action. There's no use worrying because
wasted energy to worry.
It really does. And you never know. Like I remember one time when I was performing on a cruise ship, a buckle on someone's shoe came undone and she made it work. She finished the entire thing without a problem. You never know. I once lost a shoe at the US Open in the middle of a contest and I competed and I felt it at the tip of my toe and I just waited for the hit in the song. Da 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 da, and I kicked it on cue with the music. Everyone started clapping and cheering. You just got to make it work.
You do. And I think that's one thing that maybe quote unquote regular people don't do. I think when you're in the arts, that's something that I always say, please support the arts because the arts teach you so much more than just that art form. It's how to continue on, not to worry. Yeah. It really builds character in a person and makes you confident and stronger person to do anything, really anything.
I've run a youth program for the last 8-ish years, for a long time in Northern California. Now I just started it up in Southern California last year. And that is what I promote. These are life lessons that you won't get from anything else. You are going to learn communication. You are going to learn how to resolve a problem. You're going to learn, it's honestly changed me for the better, and now I'm happy to share with other people.
Some of the things that I've learned along the way, especially since I started my company out of a college thesis project. It wasn't even supposed to be a touring company. I was just graduating with my undergraduate in dance from Slippery Rock University. So one of the things that I've learned by taking a group of people on tour is to be organized. Yeah. How to really, be detailed with, this is how many people we have. This is how many cars are going to be on the highway. Where are we going to stop to eat? What time are we going to arrive? What do the dancers need backstage? And I had to kind of learn that all over time, but also overnight in a sense, because there's no manual.
Yeah, there is no manual.
There is no manual. Maybe that's, we as dancers, we need to write that book. The tips and tricks to dance for a living, right?
Oh, yeah. We've figure it all out the hard way, but a lot of it, you just have to plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Exactly. Matt, do you have any rituals that you do before you go on stage or before you perform? Do you have anything that you do that's like a little good luck thing or?
So if I'm competing with a partner, I do. We hold hands and we take 3 deep breaths together. And on the 3rd breath, we relax our shoulders, we let everything go, and we let go of each other's hands.
Oh, sweet.
Like our little ritual that we have, because I always want to stay warm. So I'm stretching, I'm warming, I'm jumping up and down and kind of keeping very busy to warm up my body. But then I just take that moment to connect with my partner. And we always do that just as they're going to call us out or just as the stage lights are going to drop. And then we're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. If I'm doing choreography for a musical theater at a school, I usually make them do a circle. And we just call it gratitude circle, where be thankful for the moment, be thankful for everybody in the circle and for the opportunity that you can share your gift of dance or music, or theater, all of that with the audience and tell your story. So I always take that moment of gratitude before we step out onto stage. I do that with my company members too. Remember, this is a gift. Not everybody can do this every day for a living. So take it as a moment to be thankful for yourself, your health, and for that opportunity to share your gift of dance or whatever it is. So yeah, I agree. Breathing. Yeah. A lot of people forget to do that.
enjoy, like connect, center.
So that's what I'm doing tomorrow on my Allegro Dance Company page. Tomorrow I'm doing a meditation just of gratitude for the 4th of July, something that, we all should be thankful for this year, especially with a lot of things that are going on in our world. Just a moment of gratitude and be thankful for what you have and what you can give, what you can offer another person. I'll just say that I'm really grateful for having you on my dance floor. We're going to take a little tiny break here, Matt, and we're going to come back and talk about some more dancing because I want to talk a little bit about swing dance. Okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, let's take a little commercial break. Looking for ways to get fit or learn a unique dance style? Go to allegrodancecompany.net and sign up for private lessons where you can take your dance and fitness to the next level. Remember, virtual classes are now available. Go to allegrodancecompany.net for more information. And now back to our interview with Matt Richey. So Matt, we were talking earlier about some swing dance, and I knew you've competed. Tell us a little bit more about swing dance for those that don't know. What does that look like, and what's swing dance all about?
Oh, of course. So I actually do two styles of swing dance. I do a more modern style and then a vintage style, which there's not a lot of people that do both. Most people choose one and stick with it. But back in the day, the roots of swing dance came from vernacular movement from West Africa and kind of came over and was danced in the ballrooms in like the late 20s, early 30s. And then it became an improvised dance. It was not taught for a long time. People would watch each other, share moves. And so it was almost like a street dance, if you will, kind of like what hip hop was in the 80s. It wasn't taught. And then it caught on. It became a trend to the music that was played in the ballrooms. And I think a huge part of what we're doing nowadays is we're kind of preserving that dance in some ways and kind of continuing the legacy of what it was. But it's cool because we can also take that and push it forward in time as well. So a lot of people think swing dance and they think, 50s poodle skirts and leather jackets, but it's actually so much more than that because it started way before. There's a whole timeline of styles and voices and different takes on the same dance.
Right. And I can't believe it's 100 years.
Yeah.
It's 100 years old, right?
Yep.
That's crazy to think about in a sense. And that's what we do with Allegro too. We are preserving these authentic dances that I actually went to Italy and study as many times as I can. I went just a couple of years ago, and I have two amazing teachers. And that's what we do. We preserve these dances that will be lost. They're not even taught in the United States. I'm one of the few people that teaches any of these dances in the United States. And we have a dance that's over 2,000 years old.
Wow.
That dates back to like Roman Empire kind of days. So it's really important for us as dancers to also be like dance historians, isn't it? Mm-hmm. To teach this rich history of movement and bring it to the next generation.
I think especially with dances like Lindy Hop, there's a lot of subcultural dances inside of swing dance. There's Lindy Hop, Balboa, Carolina Shag, Collegiate Shag, et cetera, like the list goes on, Charleston. But with Lindy Hop especially, it was such an important part of American history, being one of the few dances that were done at the first segregated ballroom or first non-segregated ballroom. So it had this sense of community, and our history for this dance is like so important because everybody was dancing with everybody on these floors.
Right. And that's so important now with the Black Lives Matter movement to give those credit and talk about their history, because it's their history, right? These really movements came straight from their style of dance, which we have enjoyed for years, 100 years now. Mm-hmm. So describe, I know you're talking about it's partner work, right? And it's all partner work, but you can do some things side by side, I believe.
Yeah, so there's, again, all these subdivisions of swing dance. Lindy Hop is typically partner work. They also have like side-by-side or shadow, but there's also like vernacular jazz, because it all comes from the original jazz movement that we're doing with a partner. So we can also separate it as individuals. And a lot of swing dance competitions, like the International Lindy Hop Championship, they have a solo division and a partner division.
Wow.
Same rhythms, and it's a lot of the same movements, maybe, slight differences.
And most of these dances, from what I remember, I took a little bit of swing dance and ballroom kind of dance in college. And whenever I can, I try to take unique classes like we were talking about earlier. They are really fast. Like the tempo, your heart rate is insane off the charts.
It's definitely cardio. That is for sure. And I believe somewhere they did a study on the dances that are the best for your heart and the most active and the least active. And if I'm not mistaken, Lindy Hop was like number 1 or number 2. Most athletic dance style. Swing dance was like right at the top.
Of course. That makes sense to me, because if you've ever seen Lindy Hop or swing or any of those genres, forget it. It's so powerful to watch. It's so fast. Talk a little bit, Matt, about the footwork, because I know that is so important too, like getting the footwork right, because you're so close in contact with your partner.
Yeah, so especially with speed, there's Lindy Hop is a rhythmic dance. We focus a lot on the rhythms that we make with our feet, also with our body. So we always want to make sure that there's some sort of pulse in our movement. Our feet aren't just slapping on the floor, that there's a little bit of rhythm going into the floor. And we use walks and triples. So we like to swing our rhythm as much as possible, and we use a lot of syncopations, even to the really fast songs. Now, Lindy Hop doesn't have to be fast. It just can be really fast. If you're just looking for a night of social dancing, you can go and you can Lindy Hop, and it'll be slow and perfect and fun. And the more performance and competitions, it's a lot quicker, and we use like kick steps and triples to really emphasize the syncopation.
For the father-daughter dance that I did at my wedding with my dad was a swing. He was like, nope, that's what we're going to do. So we did like a really slow version of a swing dance. But I remember he's probably the person that taught me, a belt turn and, slide your hand around the back and that sort of thing, an arch turn, so those are one of my first memories, maybe as a child, to learn partner moves and these little, I called them tricks when I was little, but those tricks that you can do, slide your hand here and arch turn there, and that sort of thing that became really interesting. I thought, wow, there's a lot of things you can do with a partner, for dancing. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, I don't want to call them tricks, but, the more intermediate level of what you might see for swing.
So this is a concept that I kind of took on from one of my dance partners, Samantha Buckwalter, and she talks about how many options there are in the dance. So how many different handholds can you come up with? Not ways to hold a hand, but like right to left to right, right to right, left to left, both hands, and we kind of came up with, all in all, there's about 7 handholds. Well, how many directions can the followers turn? 2, right? Front flips and back flips aren't an option yet, not in this world. And then how many different directions can the leaders turn? And as you start adding all these layers, you start to realize that you can kind of create anything. It is an improvised dance, so there's a lot of flexibility with creating something that maybe in the moment you're like, oh, I've never done that before.
Yeah.
That's kind of the magic. And it doesn't mean it's a mistake. It means it's a new move. So it's very flexible in that way. So as long as you kind of understand the mechanics of working with a partner, anything is possible.
Now, have you worked with your partner a long time?
Samantha and I have been working together for about 6 or 7 years.
So that's a pretty long time. Sometimes if I'm working with a partner for quite some time, or you just connect and click, you can just kind of look at each other and know what you're going to do next. Does that happen with you guys?
Oh, that happens all the time. My other partner, I have 2 primary dance partners, and then, I like to work with other people just for fun.
Sure.
But my other dance partner, Natalia, we had that from the first time we ever danced.
Oh, it's so cool.
She grew up in Southern California. I knew who she was. I was really good friends with her sister, but it wasn't until I was going to be at an event in Sweden that she was also going to be at, she asked me like, hey, do you want to compete? Could be fun. And I was like, we haven't danced with each other that much, but sure. And we clicked. It was like she was reading my mind, and she still has the power to read my mind and finish my dance sentence, if you will.
Yeah. And that's so cool when that happens. You're just like, yes, this was meant to be. I want to dance with you. And it's a magical moment that, I don't know, just something happens during that time. You're just like, yeah, this is why I'm a dancer.
Exactly. Oh, and you can't get enough of it. You're like, I want more.
Yeah. Well, Matt, do you have any upcoming projects or competitions or anything that you're doing, or are you teaching online? You mentioned possibly that studio.
Yeah. So I have lots of upcoming competitions and stuff. This year, everything has gone virtual.
Right.
So I will be competing at the virtual Camp Hollywood and National Jitterbug Championships, as well as the International Lindy Hop Championships virtual. And I have a website with my dance partner, Samantha. It's called itsallswing.dance, itsallswing.dance. And we have instructional videos for all of the swing dances, not just Lindy Hop, not just West Coast Swing, the modern style. It has all of them. And we break down all the footwork. We give you tips and tricks. We have all the partnership. We also do some stuff solo, so you can practice on your own, especially being in quarantine. If you don't have a partner, you can still practice the rhythms. But all of that content is on there. We have, I think, over 300 video clips, instructional clips on there. That's
perfect. Especially, I know it's challenging right now because we're all like in our homes, or, I'm doing the same thing. I'm teaching online, but a lot of my private lessons really have grown greatly because of that one-on-one session, and because they can take a minute to think about it, and they don't have that pressure of mirrors or other people in the classroom. So that's really great. So for all of my listeners, give it one more time, the website where we can take lessons.
itsallswing.dance. And on top of that, there's also resources all on there to find local dances and videos and education. So one-stop shop for all your swing dancing needs.
That's really cool. And I think for those of you listening, take that time, go on the website, practice at home, do these things slowly, go over the footwork slowly, so that when you do get with a partner, you're kind of going to know what to do, a little bit more confidence, right? We'll have a little more confidence once you get into dancing with a partner. Now, how would one person pick a partner? I know sometimes in classes we just put people together, but if you're, you want to do this, let's say professionally, eventually, how do you pick that partner? Who's that perfect partner for you?
I've heard a lot of other opinions, and I think that there's a lot of right ways to do this. But my ideal for me is I want to partner somebody who I love no matter what. When you are dancing with somebody as a partner, whether it's the stress of a competition or the stress of working on a move that might not work out, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody that you have respect for and who respects you, and you have good communication with.
Wow, that's really important. You just hit it right there, the communication. I tell you what, I preach this to dancers all the time, and I say, come in with a humble heart, because what you're giving off might not be how we're receiving it.
Yeah.
So come in with knowing that you are not the best, and take critique, go home and fix it. It doesn't mean we don't love you or think that you're, an amazing dancer. It just means we're trying to help you to get to the next level.
My mother always told me from a very young age, she says, always remain teachable.
Yes. And even as teachers, I still take classes. That's why I asked you about your website, because I would love to take a class right now just so I can improve my skills and learn, because I haven't had a chance to really, like you were saying, really indulge in one style of dance and really, get to know it, be familiar with those steps, and have some fun with it and learn something new, right? Be outside of your dance box, if you will.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Now we've been asking everybody like their favorite app or book or anything that they're kind of helping cope with COVID-19. How are you getting through it? And so for me, I've learned a new app, Band Lab. I've been creating my own music that I'm even using on my podcast now. So is there an app that you're using all the time, or?
Oh man, I feel like there are so many right now. I have, being forced to be home all these hours, I have found so many different fun tools and apps and things on the computer. I've become a little bit more comfortable with TikTok recently, just like the other kids have been. And I've actually found that it's a great resource for meeting other dancers.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be a bunch of teenagers on TikTok and that was going to be what's cool. But then I realized it's actually a great formatted app that showcases music and relationship with music and dancing with music and
having a sense of humor with it too. I've seen some funny things. And a lot of students send me TikToks that are like, "Oh, Miss Anna, you're gonna love this one. I have to send this one to you." So yeah, so I've also indulged in a little Duolingo because I'm struggling with my Italian since I'm not talking all the time. I'm really struggling with it. So I've been trying to be more fluent in my Italian because when I go to Italy, I really want to have that language really learned. I still have family there. So
I love Duolingo. That prepared me for many trips.
Very good. So have you traveled a long distance for some of your competitions or dance in general? Have you traveled a lot?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started performing in high school, I was with that group Razzmatazz, and we performed on cruise ships, and we performed and traveled all over for that group. And then as I got older, I started teaching at conventions in Sweden, in Australia, in Amsterdam, and I've gotten to travel quite a bit to teach and share my love of dance.
Your passport is worn out. It is stamped and ready to go. Isn't that amazing how an art form can take us around the world?
Oh, yeah. I would have never imagined.
Same here. I had the opportunity in the year 2000 to take my dance company to Rome, Italy, and actually dance for the Pope John Paul. He came out and gave us a blessing, and there was a couple other dance companies there that he blessed us in 2 languages. He blessed us in English and also Italian. But just to see him in person and be in that atmosphere was like, okay, I'm pretty much done. Thanks.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I think dance or music, any of that really travels around the world and helps you really understand another culture and get to know another person in a different way and be a little more adapt to what they like to eat, what do they sound like when they speak. It's just interesting, I think.
It's also the ability to have something in common with someone that you can't even communicate with.
Yes, dance is a universal language for sure.
You go up, you're not really sure what to do, what to say. There was even one time I was walking the river in France, and all of a sudden I saw dancing by the water, and I was like, oh, interesting. And as I kept walking, I found that there was different styles of dance along the way. And I didn't quite know how to communicate with anybody, but as soon as I figured out to dance with somebody, dance with my friend, or figured out how to ask someone to dance, I was dancing all night long.
See,
it made no difference.
We're all the same and yet unique and different. I love that about dance. I think, dancers around the world, all we want to do is just move and, have fun with one another and just show our stories through our movement.
Yeah, it's so incredible.
Matt, you've been really nice to talk to us today. Thank you so much for sharing your story and all of your amazing advice. I can't wait to see your next thing on Instagram. Give us your Instagram name again so that my followers can see what I'm seeing.
You can find me at Digga Digadoos. And you can also find me on It's All Swing on Instagram as well for all of my promotional material. And we do free move of the week and Footwork Friday. So check all that out. But thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Are you kidding me? This has been so cool. And you've made my 4th weekend so amazing. Matt, I'm definitely going to check out your website. And sometime this summer, I'm definitely going to take one of those classes. So let's do this again. Maybe we can meet on Instagram and give a class together.
That would be amazing. We'll collaborate.
Thank you so much for joining us today on The Dance Floor. I'm your host, Anna Harsh. And until next time, keep dancing and moving on the dance floor.